الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. الحمد لله فاطر السماوات والأرض عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم أشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بهدى ودين الحق يظهر على دين كله وكفى بالله شهيدا أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما ثم ما بعد إن خير الكلام كلام الله سبحانه وتعالى وخير هدى هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم إن شر الأمور محدثاتها فإن كل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. We praise Allah, the originator, the creator of the heavens and the earth. He is the knower of that which is hidden and that which is open. And He, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has power over all things. He is the one who sent His Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam with the message of Islam, with that which is the truth and the deen, the way of righteous deeds. And that way will be most predominant throughout the earth before the day of judgment. And Allah is a witness of that by Himself. I bear witness there is no deity that has the right to be worshipped. No one should be worshipped in truth besides Allah. He is alone without any partners. He is alone, meaning He's not like His creation. He's not like human beings. He's like that which is in a category unique to His own self. The worship should be unique to Him, the Most High, the Mighty, the Sublime. And I bear witness that the Prophet Muhammad is the last prophet and servant to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a messenger. He is the last and still of all of the prophets and messengers. We're with the explanation. This is the second khutbah from the explanation tafsir Suratul Hujuraat. The explanation and the benefits extracted from the surah called Al-Hujuraat. And this word can be looked at literally or as a figure of speech. Hujuraat really means like your apartment, your condo, your flat where you live. But the reason it is mentioned like this because it's talking about communal life. What's in the house, what's around the house, what is in relations to the Prophet and his companions, what type of etiquettes, manners should be observed with him, towards him, and towards the believers from him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And what is the relationship between the people as it relates to those who are male and female, those that are in different tribes, different ethnic groups. What is the relationship between the everyday Muslim and the one who's arrived at the second level of Islam, which is called a mu'min? What is the relationship between the one who outwardly shows Islam but has some doubt or hypocrisy in his or her chest? And the relationship between those who feel that the relationship between them and Allah is Allah should be happy that they are Muslim. Allah should be glad I'm a Muslim, as if you are a favor to Allah rather than Allah guiding you being a favor to you. This is an overview of the surah, Suratul Hujuraat. And we started with the first two ayats بعد قول الله سبحانه وتعالى أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقدموا بين يدي الله ورسوله واتقوا الله إن الله سميع عليم يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا ترفعوا أصواتكم فوق صوت النبي ولا تجهروا له بالقول كجهر بعضكم لبعض أن تحبط أعمالكم وأنتم لا تشعرون. These are the two ayat we took last time. In the beginning of it, we mentioned the meaning of the Bismillah. When you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, the meaning of that, someone is seeking Allah's help. They translate this in the name of Allah, but that's a bad translation from the perspective of both Arabic and English. It means seeking assistance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we all know if you go to sleep, you feel well, you consider yourself healthy. You may even be what you consider young or middle age. And then you wake up in the morning and you can't move. You open your eyes, you look from right, you look to the left, but you can't say nothing. Only thing you can do is look, but you can't move and you can't speak. How many people have had that experience in their life? Many. And then after a period of time, it's like something was holding you down or some type of state you were in, then you can move, you get out of bed. That is the meaning of Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You're seeking Allah's help, you're seeking His assistance with everything, but you don't say it. When you want to drink, you just, and some people, Allahumma musta'an, they do just that, they just drink. They don't say Bismillah. As the Prophet taught us, before you eat or you drink, acknowledge that Allah is the one who gave you the life, the ability, and the cognitive know-how to see, understand, and grab that drink. Then to put it to your mouth, that's why you say Bismillah. You're acknowledging with Allah's help, Ar-Rahman, the one who's merciful to all of His creation, male, female, human, animals, jinn, angels, believers, disbelievers. That's the meaning of Ar-Rahman. And we said nobody can take that name. No one should be called, Rahman. No, that's a mistake. They could be Abdul Rahman, but not Rahman. Hey, well, yo, what's up, Rahman? Khata. That's a big mistake. Because Ar-Rahman, that name, the ulama, they mentioned, La yulik illa lillah. It's only befitting for Allah. Why? Because He has mercy for every and all of His creation. And we know we don't fit that category. We'll kill a bug in a minute. We'll exterminate many, ants and bees. And yeah, if that's a danger, then you can do that. But just because you can do it, you see it, it's not mercy. How we deal with animals. Stone a dog, kick a cat. For what? It's not mercy. But Allah has mercy for all of His creation. And then the meaning of Rahim means the one who gives that mercy. So you have the one who ذو رحمة لجميع خالقه سبحانه وتعالى, the one who has the mercy. You can't give something if you don't have it. So He has the mercy for all of His creation. The very existence that we are created is that fact. He created us out of mercy. He doesn't need us, rather we need Him. Then Ar-Rahim, the one who gives the mercy. He dispatches the mercy. That's the difference between the two names, Rahman and Rahim. And they come from the same root, Rahmah, Raham, same root. They're both from the names of Allah, Rahman and Rahim, min asmahihi, subhanahu wa ta'ala, from His lofty names. And from them is a action, an attribute, a characteristic that goes with the name. And that's a science in itself. Every name has a description and an attribute to match from Allah, but not every attribute or description has a name. Why? Because there's more attributes, more descriptions, more actions of Allah than His names. So those names automatically have an attribute. They have a description. They have something that Allah does because of that name. But there are some attributes, some actions, that don't have a name with them because they were in certain categories. Then we said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. That is addressing all the believers. And we said the companions used to say whenever you hear that term, don't take it lightly. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. It's like someone yelling to you on a bullhorn. Like we used to say, hey, like this at somebody's window. That's the phrase, yeah, and you can hear it. You can feel it. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. That ya is somebody saying, hey, in the Arabic language. Harfu manadi, to get your attention. Hey yo, you turn around like this. That's the ya in the Arabic language. Allah wants your attention. Alladhina amanu. Now what's the test? You claim you believe. You're making this declaration. You say this, put your now actions, to show this. They said, whenever you hear that statement, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe, they said, raise and put your antennas up. Pay close attention. Either Allah is going to command you with something. Either Allah is going to command you with something that's good for you, or tell you, leave that alone. Stay away from that because it's bad for you. And that's our benefit. That's from the mercy and rahmah of Allah. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لا تقدموا بين يدي الله ورسوله. Don't go before Allah and His messenger. Don't go before Allah and His messenger with how you feel. Don't go before Allah and His messenger with what you say. Don't go before Allah and His messenger with what you do. How many times do we violate that? And of course, if you don't know, in our time, there's an ayat in the Quran that talks about that, what Allah said about that it's a verse or a story or a rule in the Quran. You may not be blameworthy. Of course, if you don't know if the Prophet is authentic, it's clarified, verified, he talked about that issue. He said something in that regard. He has the action that you follow this in that category. You may not be blameworthy. Maybe, maybe not. Because when it comes to everyday life, how to get some money, how to have some fun, how to buy something we like, how to get a discount, we don't just go out and do it. We go and investigate first. We make sure that we get the most bang for our buck, unless we just wasteful or foolish. We have to investigate. We have to look into the Quran, look into the Sunnah of the Prophet as best we can. So we are being prohibited to put our opinions, to put our actions, to put our statements, even our feelings before Allah and His messenger. Allah said, then after He said, don't do it, He said, what taqwallah? Showing you that if you do, it's a sin on you. This is the meaning of what taqwallah, showing you, if you put yourself before Allah and His messenger, then you may be punishable. And Allah has Sami'un Alim. Allah hears everything. Nothing is beyond His reach. Allah, He knows everything. He's not ignorant or, not unaware of anything. So act like it. Act like you know that Allah, He hears everything and that He is the one who sees and knows everything. Then the second ayat, لا ترفعوا يا أيها الذين آمنوا. Allah addresses again. So the first ayat is general. Don't say nothing, don't do nothing, don't make no judgment, don't make no type of, move on something unless you know the ruling of Allah and His Messenger, and then you apply that. Then Allah came back and said, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tarfa'u aswatakum fawqa sawti an-nabi. All you believe, do not raise your voices over the Prophet. Do not raise your voices over the Prophet. وَلَا تَجْهَرُوا لَهُ بِالْقَوْلِ. And don't outwardly say statements to him. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That's talking about the real in his lifetime. كَجَهْرِ بَعْضِكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ. Like you do one another. And that part shows you Allah is telling you how they were as a people. Many times we hear, when we talk about this issue of African Americans and so forth, people blame us for being nationalistic, or the religious people, quote unquote, we want to call them. They say, okay, that's not the Sunnah. Here Allah is showing you, He's talking to the Prophet, and He's describing and telling their culture and who they are. They used to raise their voices over one another, like we do. Come in the masjid, somebody, praying, you hear conversations, loud, laughing. That's considered raising your voice over one another. You enter this a conversation that can be civil. I raise my voice at you, you raise your voice back at me. Who you think you're talking to? That's what Allah is telling them, not to do that to the messenger. It also includes not to call him Muhammad, which is prohibited. Why? Because he's the messenger of Allah. Call him Ya Rasulullah, O messenger of Allah. Ya Nabi Allah, call him O prophet of Allah. Because he's not like the rest of you guys, because of the revelation, because of his mission from Allah. And this also shows that Al-Abdu, he's a servant of Allah. Because Allah called him Rasulullah in the first ayah. And the second ayah, Allah said, Fawqa Nabi, over your messenger. Don't raise your voices over him. Don't treat him like you treat one another. So this shows you that the servant cannot be worshipped. That's another lesson we learn from this, because people, they make dua to the Prophet. That's worship. That's a mistake. The Prophet is not to be worshipped, because he himself is a worshiper. How can you worship a worshiper? You worship the one who created you, not the worshiper. So these two ayat, the first one is general, and the second one is particular. The first one includes raising your voice over the Prophet. It includes raising and talking, in a voice loud to him or over him. While the second ayat comes back and it is more particular to that issue alone. If we take some of the narrations from the first ayah, when the Prophet sent, and this is from Tafsir ibn Kathir and other Tafsir, they said when the Prophet sent Mu'adh ibn Jabal, who was a young man and was a scholar at a young age, by the age of 18, 19, he sent him from Arabia to a place called Yemen. He sent them to a place from Arabia to a place called Yemen. And everybody knows Yemen now. It's all in the news. 85% of the people dying from starvation, dying from cholera, dying from diseases. We know the story. He sent them from Arabia, Mu'ad, to that place. Amiran, Hakiman, Aliman, Qada'an, as a leader, to deal with the people's affairs. To also give dawah and teach them the religion. Those were his responsibilities, which shows you this also requires some Islamic knowledge. Can't just go off the hip and be a leader, go off the hip and judge and counsel, go off the hip and give dawah and teach. You have to have some knowledge from the religion, along with your environment. Because the Prophet ﷺ also told them, إِنَّكَ تَقْدِمُ عَلَى قَوْمٍ مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ. You are going to a people. Ahl al-Kitab means you're going to Jews and Christians. So you have to know something about the people, the society, the environment, but moreover the religion. So it has to be a balance. You can't just know about the culture and the people and the environment, but you jahil when it comes to the deen. Ignorant, empty, zero. And you can't be a person who knows the religion, he knows the rulings, he knows some Quran, but he's way out of touch with the reality of his environment. He's far disconnected from the people and what's happening. It can't be like that. So the point is, when the Prophet sent him, he said,
told him his mission. He said, ماذا تحكم به? What are you going to use to make your solutions and rule by, Mu'adh? Mu'adh said, Al-Quran. He didn't say, whatever I think or whatever comes to mind, I'll get back to you. The first thing he said, Al-Quran. Then the Prophet asked him, فَإِن لَمْ تَجِدُ فِي الْقُرْآنِ. And if you don't find a verse, if you don't find a rule, if you don't find a principle in the Quran, what will you go to next? He said, I will judge and rule by the Sunnah. I will use what I know from you, from your statements, from your actions, what you taught us. The Prophet ﷺ understood that reality. Then he asked him a third thing. فَإِن لَمْ تَجِدْ فِي سُنَّتِي. If you don't find in my statement, my example, مَاذَا تَحْكُمْ بِهِ? What are you going to use to judge and rule and solve problems? Then Mu'adh said, then I'm going to, and then only I'm going to use my ra'i, what I can come up with, what I think, what I understand, what I get from examining, pulling from, different things, experience, other texts indirectly from the Quran and Sunnah. Then I'm going to come up with something that I think. Then the Prophet ﷺ made dua for him, and he said, Alhamdulillah, alladhi sawwaba Rasulillahi. He said, praise be to Allah who has made correct my messenger, because Mu'adh was the messenger from the Prophet. The Prophet sent him, so he's a messenger for the messenger. He said, praise be to Allah who made the one I'm sending, my messenger, in accordance with the messenger of Allah. So what's the point? You see the application. They didn't put before themselves, in most cases they didn't because they were human. There's some exception to the rule, themselves before Allah and His messenger. They put the ayat, the Quran, the surah, the rule, the story first. They use that first. And that's our job. That's why we have to be busy learning. You know what I'm saying? And self-learning is, definitely not the way. It's to be encouraged because it's better than being, with no knowledge. But learning requires discipline. Learning requires seriousness. Learning requires sincerity, and it requires teachers and mentors. Also, you have Talha ibn Ali ibn Abi Talha and Abdullah ibn Abbas, who was a tabi'in, a great tabi'in, Ali ibn Abi Talha. He said, Abdullah ibn Abbas, he said, this first verse, don't put yourself before Allah and His messenger, means don't be hasty. Because if you're hasty, you'll jump and do something over the book of Allah. Yeah, you'll do something before you go to see what Allah said in the Quran, what the Prophet said in the Quran. So don't be hasty. That's another key. Take it easy. Pump the brakes. Doesn't mean drag your feet, make it, long and out, drawn, procrastinate. But the idea is don't jump first before you check what's in the Quran, what's in the Sunnah. This also, Abdullah ibn Abbas, he said this ayah means don't be in opposition to the Quran and the Sunnah. And sometimes you can do something. This is another thing why this, surah is so important and primitive, because the issue of following Quran and Sunnah is not just black and white like robots. Yeah, we follow the Prophet. He's the best example. Allah said that. But there's some things that you'll do that the Prophet didn't do. He didn't say. But if he was alive, he would agree with it if it was something of the heart. And we see that in his life. Things happen, the Prophet didn't say nothing about it, Allah revealed the ayah. Sahaba said something, the Prophet agreed, which made that thing become sunnah. So here, one of the main points is that when you talk about opposing the Quran and Sunnah, this also includes something that you may do that's not from the Quran and Sunnah, but it opposes the Quran and Sunnah. How will you know that? If you don't study, if you're not somebody seeking the knowledge. And likewise, you can do something that's not from the Quran and Sunnah. The opposite. It's not found in the Quran. It can't be substantiated. It's not found in the Sunnah. It can't be substantiated. But guess what? It doesn't go against it. And if it doesn't go against it, then it's as if it's in accordance with the Quran and the Sunnah. And we find this in the seerah of the Prophet, the seerah of the companions, those great scholars of Islam. And then you have Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha talking about the issue of fasting. She said some people jump to fast Ramadan before the Prophet started to fast. So some people fast today, but really Ramadan starts tomorrow. They jump to that. Some people fast yesterday, and they want to fast today because they want to make sure it was cloudy yesterday, and then today, I'm not sure. I didn't get a narration. They seen the moon. I'm just going to fast because I don't want to be late for Ramadan. Nah, you wait for the messenger. So send them. And Aisha said that's why this ayah came down as well. You also have from amongst the issues that are connected to the second ayah, raising your voice above the messenger. And some scholars, they said this also means the prophet is deceased. But the hadith is being quoted. How many times have we seen this again? The hadith is being mentioned, and people talking over the hadith. As if you're talking over the messenger. His words are being recited that you need more than food and drink for your spiritual and mental well-being. And you're talking over it. You raise your voice over it. Like Shaikh, like it's nothing. So one man, when he heard this ayah being revealed, it was from the people who used to give the khutbah in front of the messenger. He would be allowed to give the sermon like this, the khutbah, and the messenger be sitting down listening because he was a person of ilm. This person, when he heard that ayah, he went and locked himself in the house. So the Prophet ﷺ, he asked, where's this person? Thabit ibn Qais, Shamas, where is he? Because the Prophet had a habit, if he looked around and didn't see so-and-so, he looked around and didn't see Abdullah, and Abdullah was a regular, he would say, where's Abdullah? Did he travel? Is he sick? He was that concerned, and he's that aware. So somebody said, you know what? I don't know, but I'm going to go check for you, Ya Rasulullah. He went to his house and he found this man weeping. Now we learn in our society, a man is not supposed to cry. That's a sign of weakness. That's a sign you're soft. That's a person, he don't have no balls. He's weak, he's not a man. He's crying. Some of the toughest men in society cry. One of the attributes, particularly of an African American man, sometime right before he's going to really hurt somebody, the last thing he has to cry. If you think he's crying because he's emotional or he's hysterical, no. He's crying because he's about to kill something because of the oppression that he's been through and how merciful he is, and now he feels he's being walked over and over again. So likewise, this companion, he's from the people on the minbar. He's from the people who had knowledge. He was a tough individual, but he's in his house crying. When the other companion went to check on him, he said, why are you crying? He said, I'm afraid that, I'll be in the hellfire because when I give the khutbah, let's put this in context. When I'm reading, and they said from his characteristics, he had a strong voice, and when he preached, he was loud. So he took that, put that in the context, the prophet sitting there, I'm preaching, I'm under the ayat of don't raise your voice over the messenger. That's how serious they took it. And we would say, oh man, they tripping. That only makes sense. Listen, Allah promised them Jannah. He didn't promise us nothing. We got to strive and hope Allah accept we make it. They are already in the Jannah. So their psychology they had was way before our time. High power, you know what I'm saying? And it was all about discipline, being humble, and how to live as a community. So Prophet ﷺ said, go. When the person came back and told him what happened, he said, no, go get him, tell him come here. Itibih, bring him here. Father, and Prophet ﷺ, he said to him, Allah تردون أن تعيش حميدا وتقتل شهيدا وتدخل الجنة كما قال said, don't you want to be a person who lives a good praiseworthy life? He said, yes. See, he's uplifting them. He's not beating them down. What you crying for? Man, you ain't no punk like we do. He understands, but he's uplifting them. The bigger picture. Don't you want to be a person who lives a life who that life is praiseworthy? Hamidan? He said, yes. Who wouldn't say that? Yes to that. A wino would say that? Yes. You want to live a good life and be, honorable and somebody who's, praised by Allah and, the people recognize for your good. They said, yes. He said, don't you want to live and be the one who has the honor of dying, fighting, shaheeda? And shaheed, when they say he dies a shaheed, many scholars said the reason they say he's a shaheed because when the person is killed doing the right thing, the angels that you don't see are around him witnessing that. So they said he's a shaheed, meaning he's a person shahada lahu al-malaika, that the angels witnessed his action. It ain't like somebody he died with a needle in his arm. Somebody died smoking, hitting a pipe. His homies there, oh man, bring them back, get the Novocaine. No, the angels witnessing your action means your last action, you died upon good. You in the Jannah if they witness you. Point blank. May Allah make us from those people. Amen. And then the prophet said the last thing, do you not want to be from those who enter the Jannah? Meaning, you want to enter the Jannah. You're not from the people of the hellfire. So this is a real reality for us when we talk about making the cross between the religion and who we are. Making the cross between us and the society. Really living and understanding this Islam, this Quran, the Sunnah, and knowing that sometimes if you don't know from the Quran or the Sunnah and you're not blameworthy for that level of ignorance, then you use what you understand, what you know from goodness to solve that issue as long as it doesn't go against the Quran and the Sunnah. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa afdalu salatu wa atimmu taslim. وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala says إن الذين يغضون أصواتهم عند رسول الله أولئك الذين امتحن الله قلوبهم للتقوى لهم مغفرة وأجر عظيم. إن الذين ينادونك من وراء الحجرات أكثرهم لا يعقلون ولو أنهم صبروا حتى تخرج إليهم لكان خيرا لهم والله غفور رحيم. These are the next three ayahs and then we'll end. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala said, and those that don't raise their voice over the messenger. This also includes yelling, "Ya Muhammad," up at his door's window. Allah said, these are those Allah has blessed and given them in their hearts taqwa. Meaning, they understand we can't do that. We can't treat him like a homie or somebody who's from the boys. He's the messenger. Now, this is not to worship him. Let's get this straight. Because we'll talk about this next khutbah, how we've taken that and we made worship of individuals. It's not to worship him, but it's to show he is different. And what he has, we need, let's take it for our own benefit. You can't take from a person what you need if you don't respect them. If you don't respect the person and he has something you need, you'll walk right past that thing that you need. Life or death situation. So the respect has to be there. And this shows you discipline, how it trickles down that you deal with one another. Because we shouldn't raise our voices over one another. It's an issue of disrespect. Allah himself does not like the loud voice for no apparent reason. When you're preaching, when you're reading the Quran, leading the Salat, something happens, you got to scream, help, you get angry. Those are mechanisms Allah put in you for those occasions. But just to be loud for no reason, or it's cute if it's a female, or it makes me tough because I'm boisterous as a male. No, Allah hates that because that only makes commotion. And Allah sent the deen to rectify the commotion. He sent the Islam to fix the problems of the world when the Prophet ﷺ came on the scene. So when we talk about discipline, the same thing in the masjid. Wallahi. And that's always in the African American masjid. People take stuff. Nobody get offended. We talk a real talk. Because somebody here might have taken something. So you should talk. Come on, man. Get tough skin, man. We got to get this thing. We don't have much time. And we already know death is real, but with the COVID and this and that, and we're in the last days, when we're going to get it together? We can't treat the masjid like it's anybody's house or somebody's club. No. Likewise, this is the house of Allah. That's the message of Allah. So they deserve special etiquette, special dealings between the people with one another. Now, so this is a very important lesson in this surah, this chapter of the Quran. I'm advising you to read it. If you don't know how to read it in Arabic, read the translation. Wallahi, it's full of benefit for communal and social life. And wallahi, again, we mentioned these things so we can take a look at ourselves. When you go to the masajid, treat the masjid like it's the house of Allah. Don't leave something for somebody else to clean up. You drop something, pick it up. Wallahi, you know, the carpet needs to be vacuumed. People complain, but nobody brought a vacuum for home. Takes 5 minutes, vacuum, and take the vacuum back. We have vacuum here. Wallahi. Brother couldn't find it, this, that. MashaAllah. But guess what? The blind man found where that joint is at. For the sake of Allah. Because I understand this is Allah's house. That vacuum might be the thing to get you to Jannah. Bring me some toilet paper, clean in the bathroom, which is another issue. People used to outhouses back home in the country or whatever, but you ain't in no outhouse. You got to clean that bathroom. Somebody got to clean it. You don't have no problem squatting and using and standing and urinating. It's bacteria. It's dirty. And this from the religion, again, cleanliness. This from the Quran and Sunnah that Allah is saying, don't put your feelings, your statements, actions before. Cleanliness. Everybody ain't there, but that's a part of what we should be putting, how we feel and what we say and think before. No, the religion put that first. How we deal with one another. Wallahi, we treat one another horrible. Sometimes we treat the non-Muslim better than the Muslim. And we should treat both of them in a respectful and a good way. Why is it? Because we don't have the values and the etiquettes like the surah is teaching, and that's why they call this the surah of manners, the surah of how to deal with the messenger during his time, how to deal with one another after his time. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this day to give us etiquette. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to purify our hearts from all of the bad ways and vices. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to uplift us, to make us the great people that we can be and that we are. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to get it together before it's too late. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to shower His mercy upon us on this day and His forgiveness. Aqim as-salah.